Most people have a slave mentality. And in this video, I want to explain to you what exactly I mean by this. Let's get started. Having a slave mentality to me means that you're not thinking about how you're going to control your own life. You're willing to give away all of your time, your energy, your effort, your skills to earn a paycheck. So all you want in your life is stability. You're not willing to take risks that are not the traditional path of living. So you're not willing to start your own business. You're not willing to maybe make some posts on social media. You're not willing to do something different that isn't the traditional path. So you're not willing to basically forge your own way through life. What I've noticed is that people with a slave mentality mostly work 9 to 5s, and they're not willing to do the things that are required in order to get out of that 9 to 5. The way that they think is that they can continuously give away 8 hours per day, sometimes more, sometimes less, for the rest of their lives. And at some point, this company that they're working for is going to take care of them. And that's not how the world works anymore. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of people who are waiting for pensions are going to get screwed. The people who have that slave mentality that I mentioned will probably end up working forever because their company won't be able to pay for their bills. You can't rely on anybody else because nobody is coming to save you. You have to rely on yourself and you have to forge your own path. What I learned over the last few years during the lockdowns is that nobody is coming to save me. If I don't take the actions that will make my life less miserable, then my life will stay exactly the same. I'll be living the exact same life in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, working a job that I hate just to be able to make ends meet and struggling and really hating my life and hating the way that my life is going. I hated the job that I was working because I was miserable. It was the same thing over and over and over again. I had no excitement in my life. I had no real positivity. And when I think about it, I can't really shake the feeling that maybe I was a little bit depressed back then because I didn't really look forward to the rest of my life. All I thought about was having to go to work the next day. I was thinking week by week, day by day, rather than year by year or decade by decade. The only thing that I really thought about, let's say 40, 50 years from now, was that my company would give me a pension and I'd be able to survive because of the pension that they're giving me, and I'd be able to rely on them to sustain my lifestyle forever. I was basically living to work rather than working to live. I wasn't thinking about how this job could improve my life. I was thinking more about how I'm going to survive because of this job, because I'm getting this great income, and how I could dedicate more and more of my time, my energy, and my skills to this company so that they don't fire me and I don't lose this way of living that I had built because of my employer. Until the lockdowns, when I had more time to think for myself and to start listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and start doing a little bit more research, more self learning. Until that point, I always thought that my employer would support me for the rest of my life. And I worked for a pension. I didn't work because I was learning from my job. I worked because I wanted that pension. I was willing to give 30, 40, 50 years of my life, the prime of my life, to this company because I was promised something in, again, 30 or 40 years. And I didn't even know that I would end up getting that pension that I was promised because, for all I knew, I could get fired or I could lose my job before then. The company could go bankrupt. And I would be giving all of this time, this effort, this energy, all of this dedication to this company for nothing because I wouldn't even end up with the pension that I was thinking that I would get. The slave mentality is about being compliant, it's about being submissive, it's about doing whatever you're told to do by your authorities. And I think a lot of people were doing that during, let's say, the lockdowns. A lot of people were doing things that their government told them to do. And I was one of them. I did a lot of the things that I was told to do because I had just been told to do them. And if I didn't follow the rules that I was supposed to follow, then maybe I would have lost my job. And I was thinking about this from this perspective of fear, about how things can go wrong if I don't do what I'm told to do. And I think that fear is what keeps a lot of people slaves. It keeps them thinking about how things could go wrong rather than thinking about how things can go right. So if I had continuously just thought that if I quit my job, I'm not going to be able to make money. If I just kept thinking that, if I just kept thinking that, it would be so much harder for me to break out of the leash that the company that I had worked for had tied to my neck. They gave me this promise of a pension. They gave me this promise of yearly bonuses. They gave me this promise of promotions from time to time. So I feel like I'm actually making a difference when I really wasn't. My job was basically useless. I was rebalancing portfolios. I was helping wealthy people earn 1% when inflation was 2 to 3%. So even the people who I was helping weren't getting helped because the entire financial system is designed to steal value from every single person who doesn't understand how risky it is to hold on to dollars, to hold on to government debt. All of these people who hold on to debt that's issued by government are taking way more risk than they think because they are guaranteed losers. Inflation is much higher than the returns that they're getting on their investments. And again, that's another slave mentality. We're told that there's a risk free rate for government debt. We're told that that's the case, but we never verify it for ourselves. What I think is that most slaves, most of the people who are stuck in the same position for the rest of their lives, they just rely on other people to do the research for them. And that's what keeps them in that same place for a very, very long time. I was told my entire life that I should work a job because that's the stable path, that I shouldn't touch stocks and I shouldn't invest because it's too risky. I shouldn't borrow money because borrowing money is terrible and I don't want to pay interest. But when I started doing my own research and I started learning for myself, I started realizing that all of this is a result of the slave mentality. The wealthiest people in the world aren't slaves because they took risks. Either they used some of their money to start a business or they quit their job and they started doing something that's completely different from what they were told to do. And they did something that will completely change how their family structure looks in the future. In the past, maybe their family was poor, maybe their family didn't have the most money, but in the future, a lot of these people are creating this kind of wealth that'll sustain their families forever, and it'll allow their families to do whatever they want to without ever having to rely on a job, without ever having to rely on the golden handcuffs that come with all of these corporate careers that so many people want. Most people are reliant on their government, they're reliant on their employer, they're reliant on the bank, they're reliant on the police. Everybody is reliant on these systems that we've created, and that's what makes these systems even more powerful over time. So, let's say, for example, governments shouldn't be able to control our lives, but because we rely on them, they can control our lives. If you're told that you can't go to your job unless you do something, then you're probably going to do that thing in order to be able to return to your job so you don't go homeless. We've been tied into having to pay mortgages every single month. We're paying monthly payments on our cars. We're paying monthly payments on everything. And that forces us to have to keep working our jobs forever. Most people are just going to their job because they need that job to pay for the things that they need in their day to day life. And the financial system is designed in a way to make it so that if you increase your income, you can go to your bank and you can borrow more money, you can make more monthly payments, and you can buy whatever you want to. So all of these people working these jobs making 100,000 a year, 500,000 a year, a million a year, they're just increasing their lifestyle because they know that they're getting more money and they can make the payments. So they think that everything that they're buying is affordable. But what they're really doing is they're increasing their expenses today so that they're a slave for even longer. So let's say, for example, you get a raise, you're currently living in a $200,000 house, or you have a Honda Civic, and your raise gives you the ability to upgrade to $1 million house or to buy a Mercedes Benz or some kind of luxury car. If you have a slave mentality, I guarantee you that you're going to upgrade as soon as you can because you know that your master, the employer, is allowing you to now make bigger payments. So you'll do it. You'll go ahead and you'll enjoy your life today, but you won't think about the future. And I'm not saying that you're a terrible person if you think this way. This is just how we're designed. We always want more. We get bored of the things that we have and we want to upgrade. I used to think exactly the same way. I used to want a faster car. I used to want to live in a mansion. I used to want to upgrade my phone every 2 years, no matter what. Even if my phone was working perfectly fine, I'd go out and get a new one because that's just how it is. I wanted the newest technology so I could show other people that I had it. I think the slave mentality is built because of fiat, because we know that our currency is losing value. We know that everything is getting more expensive. So if you buy the things that you want today, you know that you're getting a better deal compared to, let's say, in the future. And you're almost forced to think about whether you want to spend today or just lose the money that you have. I don't think most people really do this intentionally, though. I don't think people do this because they think that the value of their money is losing. I think it's just built into our financial system, and we're just taught to think this way by our parents. We're taught to think this way in our schools. We're taught to save rather than invest. We're taught that risk is not a good thing. We're taught that, again, borrowing money is not a good thing. We don't want to pay interest. We want to earn interest no matter how little it is. People are so excited that they're getting 3 to 4% from their high yield savings account when inflation is 7 to 10% on the things that they're using on a daily basis. Again, this is just the slave mentality, and this is just us thinking that we can't do better for ourselves because this is just how we're taught to live. We don't think about the future because we just want to spend all of our energy, our time, all of our productivity today. And then we're gaslit into believing that doing this is good for us. We're gaslit into believing that we're improving the economy when we're really not, because the things that we're buying have no real positive impact on our society or on us. This mentality is something that learning about Bitcoin really got me out of. Before Bitcoin, I was very materialistic. I wanted a Dodge Challenger. I wanted a massive house, the biggest house on the street. I wanted all of the best things. But because of Bitcoin, I understand that having all of these things isn't really making my life any better. In fact, it's probably making my life worse because now I have to go create even more value just to sustain the things that I bought in the past. Bitcoin taught me that delayed gratification is worth it because when you buy Bitcoin, you know that your purchasing power is going to increase over time and you'll be able to buy more of whatever you want today in the future. One of the funniest things is that I know somebody who is very wealthy in terms of Bitcoin, and he has a very modest lifestyle. And it's because he doesn't care about the material things. He doesn't really want a bigger house. He doesn't want a faster car. He just wants to create even more value so he can get even more Bitcoin. He does still spend money though. He goes on a lot of vacations. He spends a lot of time with his family and friends. He has his kids in a lot of extracurricular activities, but he doesn't waste his money on, let's say, brand name clothes. He doesn't waste his money on getting a $500,000 car. He doesn't care for those things, so he doesn't spend his value on them. Fiat currencies force you to think materially. They make you want instant gratification on everything, while Bitcoin forces you to think more spiritually, more philosophically. It forces you to think about the future, and it makes you think twice before you spend your value on things that really won't add value to your life. So, what do you think about this? Do you think you have a slave mentality? Did you have a slave mentality before? I definitely did. I definitely relied on my employer. I wanted all of the things that I could afford because my employer basically allowed me to have them by giving me a raise. And I would always spend all of the value that I earned from my job on the necessities and then on the things that I wanted. All of my value was gone. Bitcoin was definitely a massive paradigm shift. I no longer think of things as brands. I think more about quality. I think more about being able to fulfill my needs. I don't think I could ever be employed anymore because I know that if I work a job and if I work 40 hours a week, those 40 hours are very likely not going to pay me dividends over the long term. I'm only going to be getting my earnings and then I'm going to get nothing else out of working that job. I would rather be creating my own businesses, working on my own path through life and creating value by adding value to other people's lives rather than working a job that I have to in order to improve the economy. Because I was able to get rid of that slave mentality, I no longer rely on an employer. I was willing to take the risks that were required to do something that wasn't the traditional path. I started this social media stuff. I started creating content on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. I started a newsletter. I started all these things because I was able to get out of that slave mentality. I no longer rely on an employer because I now rely on myself to create value for other people so that I can pay for the things that I need to pay for. Without Bitcoin, I think this would have been possible, but it would have taken a lot longer to get to this point.